Well, it really remains to be seen. As you just mentioned, he is a Kennedy, and that name matters a whole lot here in the U.S. He ran as a Democrat initially and ultimately left that to run as an independent. But here, as an independent, you have to get on the ballot in each individual state, and each state has different requirements. Those might be signatures. Some states needed a running mate, which he got handled when he announced his running mate with Nicole Shanahan. But there's a whole host of things he has to do, and it's really, really expensive. So we don't know how many states Kennedy will ultimately be on the ballot in. But if he's able to get on every state ballot, as he says he will, you could certainly make a difference. We're looking at a really tight race between Donald Trump and President Biden. And it's unlikely Kennedy actually wins, but he could change the course of the race and whether the Republican or Democrat wins.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that in a moment. He did pick this wealthy lawyer today, Nicole Shanahan, as his running mate. How might she assist his campaign?
You know, we really don't know much about Nicole Shanahan. She has no political experience other than being a major political donor. In the past, she's donated to Democrats, including President Biden in his 2020 campaign. And she's been a major donor for Kennedy this time around. She is well known within tech circles in the California area, but she's an unknown political commodity. At the very basic level, she'll help him get on ballots because some states required him to have a running mate. She also has a lot of money, and there are questions of whether she might help bankroll this campaign. She's donated millions already to try to boost him. But ultimately, you know, Kennedy is his own figure, his name, a lot of his stance, many of which are controversial, especially involving vaccines and health. And that is ultimately what is going to get people to vote for him or not. It's unlikely that Nicole Shanahan is going to be a deciding factor for voters.
Yeah, and his views have been quite controversial in some quarters. Take us through what he thinks about some of those issues, which is quite unusual, you would imagine, for a Kennedy.
Right. And we should say that many Kennedy family members are not very happy with his views. The Kennedy family is a longtime Democratic family here in the U.S. We recently saw dozens of them at the White House post a photo with Joe Biden as sort of an arrow at RFK Jr. You know, some of his most controversial views really revolve around health, the vaccine, the coronavirus vaccine. He has questioned whether it's been effective. He's questioned the safety of it. He has said that vaccines cause autism. Now, of course, public health experts dispute that, and the U.S. government has pushed back very hard on that. He did say when I interviewed him last year that he was not anti-vaccine, but he was pro-vaccine safety and basically getting more vaccine scrutiny. But he has questioned a lot of things, basically, really in general, the government's control, and that includes with Wi-Fi, the effects of Wi-Fi. He's questioned chemical pollutants in water. He is a longtime environmental lawyer, in fact, one who had been very successful in suing some pesticide companies in recent years. And so basically his worldview is really affected by corporations and the government and how he feels that people are being lied to.
Yeah. How, in your view, might he pull support away from either Biden or Trump, given he's, of course, a former Democrat, but he does hold views that are quite sympathetic with a lot of Trump supporters?
Yes, and we should say he's a former Democrat and comes from a Democratic family. He did officially leave the Democratic Party. He is now running as an independent. Who he pulls from is a really fascinating question that we haven't quite figured out here. I've been to several Kennedy rallies and I'm talking to voters, and, you know, it's really across the spectrum. Some had voted for Biden in 2020. Some have voted for Trump. And what really we're seeing across the board here in the U.S. is that voters, a majority of voters, do not want a rematch between the two of them. But just how many of them are willing to go for someone like Kennedy is the question. He's polling generally in Wall Street Journal polling lower than 10%, sometimes in the low teens and other outlets, not enough to make an actual difference or become president. But in states like Arizona, which is where I am right now, it was decided by 10,000 votes. And so Kennedy could certainly change the course of the race. We just don't quite know for whom, whether he would pull more from Trump or Biden. Some polls suggest he hurts Trump slightly more, but the Democrats are actually more concerned and have a more aggressive campaign against Kennedy right now than the Republicans do. So it's a bit up in the air, but he pulls views from both sides, certainly.
Yeah. How do you think both major political parties might deal with him going into this campaign more deeply to try and mitigate him becoming a spoiler?
Well, we've seen Democrats get increasingly nervous as Kennedy has increased in the polls and really basically started to get on ballots in the U.S. He's continuing to raise money. Democrats, the National Democratic Party, recently built out a team made for third-party candidates. So those are the people that are not Republicans or Democrats, with Kennedy being the one who is certainly the biggest threat to them. So the minute Kennedy's announcement was over with his running mate, the Democrats got on a call with reporters and basically went after all the reasons they thought that she was a bad choice and Kennedy was a bad candidate. Republicans have been much less nervous, although some polls do show he might be a bigger threat to Trump. They've started to criticize Kennedy as progressive, which is interesting because the Democrats basically say he's trying to help Trump. So they're basically just pointing fingers at one another. But Republicans have not really started a concerted effort to try to stop him, at least not yet.
Yeah, well, he could end up being quite a fascinating political spoiler. Great to get your views on things. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.